Hey guys, so today we're going to be connecting the server and the website, but before we do, we need to get the server in order. So I have startserver.ts open, and this is in the server package, and there's a little bit of a type error here. So either when I was upgrading one of the either GraphQL tools or one of the GraphQL things, the schemas don't match up. So the way we fix this is just casting it to the type of anything. The other way we could fix this is try to figure out what version this package uses and what version we're using and try to sync up the versions. But I know my code does what it's supposed to do, so I don't really want to get into trying to go fix that. So in cases like this, when TypeScript is complaining, I just like to cast it to anything. Alright, the other thing we need to fix is in our forgot password test. So this is in modules user forgot password, and we moved this password not long enough into the common directory. So I'm just going to move this up here, and I'm going to import this from ab/common instead. And then the server should be at least functioning, and the way you can test this is just run yarn test. Now I want to make sure you guys have the Redis up and running, so run Redis server, and then also make sure you have Postgres up and running when you do this. So I'm just going to do yarn test, and you can make sure it is working, and you should see all the tests pass. And so if that's all good, and you can wait for a second, and I think it's only going to run this test because this is the only thing we changed, but it's going to have some commands that pop up, and if you press A, it'll run all of them. So we can just run all of them to double check. The next thing that we're going to do is in our register resolver. So source modules register resolvers. We commented out sending the email, but now we actually want the email to be sent. And okay, it looks like it passed. Okay, I'm just going to Control C out of that. So I'm going to just uncomment this. And we have the imports at the top here, and we have this here, and it looks like the path could be wrong, so I think we just need to add another ... I'm guessing. Yep, so ... and what this one is at, oh, this is at the same location. Okay, so I just changed the path of this one. There we go. And do we have any other errors? This should have a comma at the end. So now whenever we call the register resolver, it should not only create a user, but it should also send an email to our account. Now the thing that we're using to send emails is SparkPost. So if you haven't already, you want to go ahead and create a SparkPost account and get an API key. And then you want to create a .env file. So I don't know if you can see, but right here I have a file that is called .env. You want to create one of those. I can't show you it because it has my secrets in it, but it looks something like this. So this is an example. So SparkPost API key, and then you're going to put the value of the API key that you get. And then the front end host, this is, I can show you, that's going to be equal to whatever our server is running on. And our server is on, I believe, localhost 3000. Yep, localhost 3000. So what you can do is just http://localhost 3000, and that'll be your front end host. And then you put your SparkPost. So create a file called .env and put these values in it, and you're good to go. So then you'll be able to actually send an email. So what we're going to do now is start up our server. So yarn start, and we're going to just head over to the graphical for that, or the GraphQL playground. So that's at localhost, I believe, 4000. And what we're going to do is just type out our register mutation. So mutation register, and if you want, you could actually test this right now. And password. So why don't we actually test this right now and make sure you guys have it set up. So assuming you've added the key, and we'll grab the path and message. So assuming you've got the key for Postgres, or the API key, and you set that value in the .env file, and you restarted your server, you can now be able to receive emails. So this is what I like to use, a service like 10minuteemail.com. Let's refresh this. What it does is you get an email for 10 minutes. It's really good for testing these things. So I can now just come over here, paste in for register and password. I'll just use the same password, and I could create a user. So I got no errors back, and we can come over here, and after I don't know how long, we should receive an email from our thing. We'll give it a second to do that, and we can also look over here. It says total accepted recipients 1. That means it successfully sent the email to the user, and I assume it just takes a little bit to load. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on our website. So now we actually want to call this mutation, register mutation, from our controller. Oops. And we're just going to do that whenever we submit the form. So in our index controller over here, I am going to create a new terminal, and I'm going to cd into packages controller, and we need to add a few packages. So I'm going to add the first one is React Apollo. We're going to need GraphQL tag and also just GraphQL in general. So something I forgot to mention yesterday when we were setting up this controller, since we're going to be using this in React and React Native, we need to make sure whatever code that we put in this controller is not specific to either platform. So that means I cannot use any divs in here, and then conversely I cannot use, like, for example, Vue from React Native, or any of those things. And right now we're doing good. We're just doing this generic children, which is this code works for both React and React Native, and that's basically how we're going to do it the whole time. So we're going to go ahead and import GraphQL from React Apollo, and we're also going to import GQL from GraphQL tag. Alright, so what we're going to do is type out our mutation. So I'm going to say register mutation is equal to GQL, and then we do backticks, and here we specify our what our GraphQL command that we want to run is. What I like to do is actually just come back over to the playground and then just type out what I want my mutation to be. And we're basically going to do the same mutation, but instead of hard coding values, we're going to take variables, so no matter what they fill out in the form, we can send a register for it. So to do variables, you add a parentheses by the mutation, and then you do a $sign. So this is the name of my variable, so my variable name is going to be email, and then you have to specify the type of the variable, and it's going to be a string, and it cannot be null, and you need to make sure this matches whatever type it's expecting. So if we look at our schema, we can see the email is expecting the type of string $signs, or bang sign I mean. So we want to do the same thing. And then same thing for our password. So I'm going to create a variable called password, and we're going to do string exclamation point. And now we're just going to use those variables, email, password. And by the way, you don't have to have the same name. I'm using the same name just out of convention, but I could call this email 2, for example, or whatever you want. Alright, so let's go back to just using email. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it here. And now we're going to just wrap our component. So I'm going to just export const register controller, and this is going to be equal to GraphQL, and I'm just going to rename this to C. So the first parameter to GraphQL, we say what mutation or query we want. So we want to do a register mutation, and I'm going to use a lowercase, and you'll see why in a little bit. And then here I'm going to use the component that we want to wrap, which is C right here. Next up, we want to we basically just call this, right? We now have access to a mutate function in our props, and we're just going to say after we submit this, we can keep console logging it just for debugging purposes. We're going to say this.props.mutate, passing in variables, and our variables are going to be our values. Now, the types are not correct. Our props here. So to be able to get this to work with GraphQL, we have to specify what we expect the types to be for the variables. And what we do to use this is we're going to say child mutate props. So this is something that you get from React Apollo, so we can have it auto import. And so how this works is child mutate props. You use these angle brackets, and the first parameter is your regular props. So my regular props are these up here, and then you specify two other parameters. So I'm going to say any and any, and those are the defaults. This is the type of your mutation, and here are any variables that your mutation takes. For now, we're going to specify any because we have not basically typed this yet. So there's a library called Apollo CodeGen that'll automatically create types for us. We'll do that in the next video. For now, we're just going to say type of any. So we're not getting any kind of basically TypeScript type annotations or helps here. We don't really know. We just see anything, any, and that doesn't help us. So next video we'll go over how to actually type this correctly, but for now we'll just see if this does indeed work. And that's pretty much all we have to do on this side. I think we're good to just go ahead and run this. The only other thing is we can await the response of this, and I can say const response, and we can just log this for testing purposes. And why don't we just say response? And so now I'm just going to say yarn build, and then I think our server, not our server, but our over here, yeah, should recompile. So this is, I have the website up and running, so it should be able to just restart. So register connector. Looks like there's a problem with this guy. Has the type of any. We're just going to, for now, say submit is any. And again, we'll go back and fix these types in the next video. Let's just go ahead and test this and see if this does work. So let's go to our console log, and we can see what happens. All right, so here's our 10-minute email, and okay, cool, we do see the email that we got before. So this is from SparkPost, and I'm going to refresh. Let's make sure we get a new email. Cool. And I'm going to paste it in the email. I'm going to use that same thing for the password, and we're going to register. Alright, so we can see we got the values correctly, and we got a response. Registers null, same thing we got over there, so it looks like it's successfully sent. We can take a look at our Node.js over here. We can see total accepted recipients is 1, so it looks like it was able to successfully send the email. So we can wait a few minutes and see, oh, it looks like it came automatically this time. Awesome. And so like we can click on this link and see where it takes us, and we're able to successfully confirm our email. We got an OK message. Now in the future we might want to redirect the user to the front end after it successfully works like this, and that's something we'll probably change. But yeah, so that's how I think we're pretty much done, and we got the whole loop of this to work. So just a recap of what we did is we ran the mutation over here in graphql, and then we basically took what we ran here and got it to execute that same thing in React. And the way we did that is by using GQL. So this allows us to specify the mutation that we want to run, and then to be able to call this from our React component, we have to use the higher order component called Graphql, or GraphQL I mean. And we specify our mutation that we want to get pretty much injected into the component, and then our component itself. And then in our component we have access to a function called mutate from the props, and then we pass in the variables. Now something I didn't really mention is you want to make sure the names match up. So in our component over here, so email and password, right? So our values over here is going to be that object. So it's going to have an email and a password field. And our variable names are email and password too, so they match up. But if I called this, for example, email2, like I had before, we would have to rename the variable or the value here. So we have to do maybe something like this, where email2 is equal to values.email and password is equal to values.password. So you need to make sure that the variables that you pass in here match the name in your mutation, which they do, so we can actually just pass in values directly. So that was like a little shortcut that I did here. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Like I said, tomorrow we will get the TypeScript types all connected, so we get some type annotations, which are really nice. And yeah, that's it for this video.